Hi, Dr. Meyer. My name is Danielle Dales, and today I'm going to be talking about the responsive classroom in middle grade. So first off, I hope you are doing well and trying to take a break this summer as much as possible. I apologize for the way that I look in this video. It is about 9 o'clock, and I'm filming this after getting back from Universal. So I haven't been able to shower yet, so I apologize. But today in this presentation, we're going to talk about, like I said earlier, the responsive classroom in middle grades. And I chose this topic because it is something that I've heard a lot and we've discussed a lot in elementary education. And so being able to bring that in and tie it to middle grades really excited me. So in this, there are going to be 4 key aspects that I'm going to go over to try and keep it as concise as possible. So the 4 keys are engaging, academics, positive community, effective management, and then developmentally responsive teaching. So in the first one, engaging academics, there are many characteristics to this topic that I could have included here, but as you can see on this slide, I just added in a few that really stood out to me. So the first one that stood out to me was that the learning needed to be active. Students are constantly needing to learn by thinking, exploring, and applying their knowledge rather than just sitting and listening to someone else tell them the knowledge in a lecture. And for example, I myself am the type of person that needs to be doing what I'm learning. Like I need to be in doing the motions rather than someone just telling me. And so that's why I think making lessons that are active and hands-on will really allow students to dive deeper into their topic. The second one is connecting the learning that we're doing to students' interests and hobbies. And this can only truly happen if teachers understand who is in their classroom, how each of them learn, what they like, and how they work together. And knowing this is going to set up each classroom for success, as the students will be more committed to their learning, no matter how challenging the topic is, if it's something that they love to do and they're interested in. And when it comes to impacting or how it's supporting the AMLE book, in AMLE, they stress the importance of having curriculum that is challenging, exploratory, integrative, and diverse. And these characteristics of engaging academics is doing just that. It's allowing everything that we're doing and everything that we're teaching to be active and exploratory and diverse, and for each student that we are connecting it to, just based on it being active, challenging, and purposeful, and doing something that the students truly want to be doing. So the next one is a positive community. So this one doesn't have as many characteristics, and it's really based on just 2 things. It's based on building those relationships and reflecting constantly on what we're doing in the classroom. And when we're reflecting, that is a big one for me, because not only as a teacher are we supposed to be reflecting on the lessons that we're doing and the activities that we're doing, how we are presenting these activities to the kids, but it's also the students being able to reflect, so they can look back on decisions that they made, how they communicated to the teacher about something, or reflect on how teamwork went. If they're in a group, maybe at the end of the group, having the group presentation or project or whatever, you're having them reflect on how they did and what they could be doing better. And a big part of building a classroom community, or a positive classroom community, is creating, as a teacher, a safe and predictable schedule every single day. And setting those expectations for each student early on in the year is the most important part, because if you don't set those expectations and you don't create a safe space at the beginning of the year, the students are never going to feel comfortable enough to, one, follow those expectations, or two, even want to be there. I tied this positive community back to my last semester's placement. So last semester, I was placed in first grade at Jefferson Elementary, and it was probably the most positive classroom environment that I have ever been a part of, ever, ever, ever. Every student in that class was best friends with the other one. They would root each other on when they got a question right, or when they got to go to the treasure box at the end of the week. They would be like, congratulations, so-and-so, so proud of you, good job. And they were just so supportive of each other. And I'd never seen that before. And I asked the teacher so many times, I was like, I don't know how you did it, because this class is hands down the most supportive group of kids I've ever been around. And knowing that, even though that was in first grade, me as someone who's learning about teaching middle grades, I know that I can create this same kind of environment in a middle grade classroom. Because yes, they're older, but they still have the same mentality they did when they were in first grade. As long as I am a teacher and connecting above and beyond as much as I possibly can with these students and getting to know them and creating this safe space for them, I really feel like it could be as positive of an environment as that first grade class was. And for the positive community and connecting that one to supporting it in AMLE, in the very first section of the book, it talks about how educators really need to respect and value young adolescents, while also supporting them and advocating for them at the same time. And these things are just the base building blocks of creating those relationships that then will lead to a positive classroom community. Our third step ties in really well with the last one for positive community. It's effective management. For me, they honestly go hand in hand, but they're just a little bit different, but they work really well together. So on this one, effective management is promoting responsibility, autonomy, and higher engagement in the classroom. It's explicitly teaching those behavior expectations early in the year. It's providing clear and immediate feedback, and it's connecting the meaningful expectations that we have in the classroom to each student's goals. One thing that I have always wanted to do, and I think it would really be beneficial for a middle grade classroom, is at the very beginning of the year, have the students discuss what they think the classroom expectations should be, how they would want a classroom to feel, how they would want to be treated in the classroom. And then once we have that written down, I'll have all of them sign it and say that these are the expectations that they have created and discussed as a class. And these are what we need to follow every day when we come to make sure that we're creating that safe space for each other and for ourselves. And I think this also will tie into, so all of these, the promoting responsibility, autonomy, creating those clear expectations, it is also setting up for their learning momentum to constantly be growing. We're never going to be taking a step back if something goes wrong. We're just always going to be taking a step forward. We're never going to be getting pushed back. And I think that's really important for middle grades, especially because a one step back that may have happened in middle school or in elementary school, if they take a step back, they do the same thing in middle school, it qualifies as probably about 2 steps back. Anything that happens is going to impact them more at that moment than it would have in elementary school. And with effective management, it ties into middle school or into the AMLE. They don't really talk much about creating rules and expectations, but they do talk a lot about creating a culture and learning environment that promotes every single thing that I talked about earlier, the promoting responsibility, autonomy, higher engagement. Sorry. And I believe setting these expectations in the beginning is really going to set up the class for success in creating and sustaining really that positive classroom community throughout the whole year. And our last one is developmentally responsive teaching. This one is very, very simple. It is when a teacher uses her or his knowledge of child development and the many observations that they have of each student to create this appropriate environment of learning. And an example of this would be using the word expectations instead of rules, because rules can sometimes come across as a very negative word, and students are more prone to not follow them if they're called rules rather than expectations. Another example would be what I talked about earlier, where we're creating lessons for students, including things that they're interested in, their hobbies. And it's also knowing, age level, their reading level, their comprehension levels, their math levels, kind of where they're at. And you're able to really make those connections and blend them together to create an environment in a classroom that those students, no matter if they're 2 grades above or 2 grades below, they still feel excited and comfortable to come into class every day and work as hard as they possibly can. And this last step, connecting it to AMLE, in the book, they talk a lot about how teachers must be prepared and knowledgeable, not only in their subject area, but also in their young adolescent knowledge. And I think that ties in really well with this last step, because not only is the teacher having to understand what she's teaching the students, but she or he is having to tie in their observations of the student and how they see them developing, how they're growing, maybe some things they need to work on, and they're tying and blending all of those together to create this all-around responsive classroom. And last, here are my references. The top one is the actual responsiveclassroom.org website that I got most of my information. I kind of drew from that. And then the one below, the academic article, I got that one from the ETSU library database. And this one just kind of ties more into the culturally responsive classroom. And it brings in a lot of the topics that I talked about today as well. Kind of helps me kind of dive in a little bit deeper into it. But yeah, that is it. Thank you again for watching this. I know it was probably really long, but I appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, morning, afternoon, whenever you're watching this. But yeah, thank you.